The trauma bond is when two people who have similar trauma in their childhood that is unresolved meet and think that they have amazing chemistry and a connection when really the chemistry and connection is deeply rooted in their trauma. And so, because of that, the beginning of the relationship can feel explosive, like fireworks. It can feel oddly familiar and feel very close to home. But what we don't stop and ask ourselves is, what was our experience at home in our childhood? Was it a safe place? Was it a place of consistency and unconditional love? Was it a place where we felt like we had our needs met and we didn't have to prove our worth? Or was it the opposite? So because oftentimes trauma bonding can start with a lot of love bombing and just very intense emotions, we tend to overlook some of the warning signs like the butterflies and the anxiety that starts to arise usually very early on in the relationship. I remember the exact moment that I trauma bonded with a couple of my exes in the past. It was very early on in the relationship, and we were talking about our past and our pain with our families and how we both kind of felt abandoned. And I remember feeling almost like a soul tie to the person. As soon as they would tell me about their trauma, I felt like an obligation to not abandon them because I knew how bad that it felt to be abandoned. So even though there were so many red flags and my intuition was screaming at me and I had extreme anxiety in the beginning of these relationships, I ignored that and wrote it off as self-sabotage because, like most trauma bonds, it started out with a lot of love bombing, a lot of intense emotions that were, in my opinion, way too much too soon. So because I lacked awareness, boundaries, and my ability to speak my truth at the time, I felt kind of obligated or forced to stay in these relationships. I thought it was my job to love these people unconditionally, even if that meant abandoning and betraying my own needs and wants. And that's exactly what I did. I was so addicted to how the attention and the love bombing felt in the beginning of the relationship that I was willing to do whatever it took to make sure I kept that level of serotonin pumping through my brain. I was deeply starved for love my entire life, so when anyone would give me any type of attention, I would completely lose myself, and just anything that I wanted or needed would just go out the window. My sole objective was to not be abandoned, and you can guess what happened. I was abandoned.